All right, everyone. Today, we're going to jump into a really fascinating and super fast moment in history, the scramble for New Guinea. We're going to see how one of the world's last big unclaimed islands was suddenly, like snap, divided up by European powers half a world away. This whole thing happened so quickly, so let's just dive right in.
So this is the big question, right? How does one single island end up getting split right down the middle? It's really a story about how lines drawn on a map way over in Europe had these huge, lasting consequences for the people actually living in New Guinea. So how did a place that was basically ignored by empires all of a sudden become the center of this intense colonial race?
To really get what's going on, we need to set the stage. You have to understand that for most of the 1800s, New Guinea was one of the last major landmasses on the planet that wasn't officially claimed by a European power.
So think about it. For the longest time, New Guinea was kind of just there. The big European empires, they knew about it, for sure, but it was way out on the fringes of their maps, this remote, challenging place that wasn't really a priority. And then, bam, everything changed. It feels like it happened overnight.
So what lit the fuse? Well, the first move came from a country that was pretty new on the scene but really ambitious, Germany. As a newly unified nation, Germany was itching for the status that came with having an overseas empire, and it was actively looking for places to plant its flag.
And this was the move that changed everything. German traders, with the full backing of their government, started setting up posts and businesses along the northern coast. And let's be clear, this wasn't just about selling goods. No way. This was a signal, a very clear one, that they intended to claim that territory and build a permanent base.
And just like that, a line was drawn in the sand. The northern part of eastern New Guinea was now officially German New Guinea. This one action immediately put all the pressure on the other major player in the neighborhood, Great Britain. Now, Britain's move wasn't about starting a fight, it was about reacting to one. Germany's claim sent shockwaves all the way to London. They were getting a ton of pressure from their own colonies in Australia, who were, let's just say, not thrilled about a rival European power setting up shop right on their doorstep.
So what did Great Britain do? Well, it wasn't an immediate all-out invasion. It was actually a much more careful two-step process.
This timeline really shows you how things ramped up. First, in 1884, Britain declared a protectorate over the southern coast. This was basically a diplomatic way of saying, hands off. It was a low-cost way to claim influence and block Germany. But just 4 years later, in 1888, they made it permanent by officially annexing the area as the colony of British New Guinea.
Okay, so what's the difference here? It's actually a huge deal. Think of a protectorate as putting a reserved sign on a territory. You're saying, hey, this is ours, nobody else touch it. But you don't fully own it. A colony, on the other hand, is full ownership, total political control. So that shift in just 4 years from reserved to owned shows you just how seriously and quickly Britain moved to lock down its control.
So the politicians in Europe had drawn their lines on the map. But what did any of that actually mean for the people and the land itself? Let's take a look at what was really happening on the ground in this new British territory.
The year 1895 gives us a pretty good snapshot. This year marks one of the first big economic events to happen in the new colony.
Gold? You guessed it. A discovery on the Mamber River kicked off a small gold rush. It brought in prospectors and created this brief wave of excitement. You know, this was the dream, that this new land was full of treasure.
But here's the reality check. The gold rush didn't last, and the territory never really became the economic powerhouse some folks had hoped for. For the rest of the century, British New Guinea just didn't get much investment. It was held for strategic reasons, not for profit, and it pretty much stayed a remote and undeveloped colonial outpost.
And you know, it wasn't just about politics and maps. Life on the ground was also shaped by forces way more powerful than any government decree from London. Get this, in 1888, the exact same year Britain officially annexed the territory, a massive volcano on Ritter Island blew its top. It caused these huge, devastating tsunamis. It's just a wild reminder that nature had its own say in what was happening here, big time.
So as the 19th century wrapped up, the scramble was basically over. A new reality, a divided reality, had taken hold on the island of New Guinea. And this is what it looked like. By the year 1900, the eastern half of the island was sliced in two. The north was German New Guinea. The south was British New Guinea, which would pretty soon get renamed the territory of Papua. The map was, for all intents and purposes, permanently redrawn.
And then there was one last really crucial piece of the puzzle. Britain decided to hand over the job of running its southern territory to its nearby dominion, the brand new Commonwealth of Australia. This move right here would kick off a long and very complex relationship between Australia and the people of Papua New Guinea.
So there you have it, an island, once whole, now split by these colonial lines that would shape its entire future, right through 2 world wars and all the way to independence. And that leaves us with a final question to think about. What kind of challenges do you think a people, now divided by foreign borders and laws, are going to face in the crazy century that's about to begin?